afternoon and welcome to another edition of 15 Minutes of Flame. I'm Robert Phoenix. How is everybody today? Finally, getting a bit of a sunny break here in Austin, Texas. The chemtrail-controlled atmosphere has dissipated for at the very least one day. How is everyone? We're on the backside of Donald Trump's historical congressional address. And people have been asking me to kind of break it down. I watched it all the way through one time. Did not take a bunch of copious notes, so a lot of it is really just surface related for me and what I saw, what I experienced, what I felt. And I'm going to get into some of my impressions, just again, sort of topical. And then what I did is I looked at the time of the speech and I cast a chart for that. And then I did some synastry for the speech and the United States, the chart of the United States, and the speech for Trump. And it's really fascinating how the timing, the actual time of the speech worked out for clearly astrological reasons that are both in Trump's camp and in the chart of the United States. We'll get into that in the last 20 minutes or so of the show. We don't have a lot of time today, so I kind of want to move things along. I'll do a longer post on this on the website. Those charts are available right now on my Facebook page, Robert Phoenix, and then also here on the show page. But let's get into the impressions. First of all, let's set the stage. It's Donald Trump, Mr. Sun in Gemini, Uranus in Gemini, True Node in Gemini. Again, what do we see with Gemini? We see duality. We see differentiation and the split between bicameral positions of reality. Black and white, right and left, and it's also very strongly defined. Very strongly defined. So let's look at last night. What were the women, the Democrats, what were they wearing? They're wearing white. So we have women who are standing out, making a statement. And what are the men and the Republicans wearing? They're wearing suits, generally black or dark colored suits. So just from the template of his charts, this speech gives us a clear understanding about this nature of duality. I mean, it's right there. Black and white, male and female, right and left, Republican and Democrat. It's right there. If you wanted to look at the subatomic particle of the Trump presidency and of the Trump emblem in terms of energy, personal energy, style, imprint, there it is. Right out of the gate. Now, my TV color could be off just a little bit, but Paul Ryan, Mike Pence sat behind him. Mike Pence wearing a bluish tie, not quite Israeli blue, that light powder blue, which is the color of the Star of David, which they like to wear to show that there's allegiance, one of those signs. So Pence wasn't quite there. He was incorporating a little bit more blue on that side. It looked to me like Ryan's blue had a little purple in it. I could be wrong. It could be completely wrong. A little purple in it. Just to notice. And of course, there was a requisite rising and falling, except on the Democratic side, people didn't rise. Although sometimes they did. They were selective. Like when they brought the young woman out who wasn't supposed to live and her father decided he was going to start his own medical company and save her life. And now she's at Notre Dame. Everybody stood up for that. Everybody stood up for that. If you're not standing up for that, then just leave the building. But then it was sort of selective. Like some people would stand up for one thing. Like all the Republicans stood up for Trump. I mean, that was a gimme. But on the other side, I was watching him like, I'll stand up here. Oh, I won't stand up here. I'll stand up here. I won't stand up here. And it was fascinating to watch the selective standing alone. Really, really interesting. But I think the most annoying thing is you could hear Trump clapping, like they would not kill his mic. You heard that. Note to Donald Trump: next time, don't clap. Somebody's got to tell him that. Then there's the military guys down in front. What a bunch of sourpusses those guys are, aren't they? Sit there, we're military. We're stoic. We're dragons. We're old dragons. I think they stood once or twice. Once when they were lauded for protecting America, another for law enforcement, and I think a third for the woman whose husband died in Yemen. And I want to talk about that. This is one of the most. So the military guys, we have a virus on the planet that is connected to war and conflict. I'm not sure if it'll ever go away. I think it gets worked out here. Maybe at some point in time, some other planet will take it on and will transcend this war BS. It's almost like when they had that big interplanetary battle between Maldek and Mars, that the war virus sort of like transferred off planet to Earth. That's what it feels like. And so we've got these generals, we've got these armies, we've got these bombs, we've got all this stuff. It keeps us all slightly agitated, allows Trump to have a record military budget. And why do we need all that military? Why do we need it all if we're supposedly pulling out, pulling back, pulling away, not being involved in these conflicts in the Middle East and North Africa, if we're divesting ourselves of our relationship with NATO? Oh, now NATO's just got to pay its own fair share. That's what it's come down to now. So we can see that Trump is actually beginning to do kind of a soft shoe sort of walking back of some of the military stuff. But he's got a record military budget lined up. And of course, those guys sitting in the front row with all their suits on and their little buttons and badges and epaulets, they love it. Love it. Their buddies in the military industrial complex, industry, arms manufacturer, all the support systems, they love it too. That alone should keep Trump in for another 4 years. Seriously. Let's talk about the woman whose husband died in Yemen. Now, it was kind of, I guess, wonderful so that she could have some, this man passed away just recently, a month ago. It was like 2-3 days after Trump got elected and was actually in office. Boom. There was a raid scheduled to go down in Yemen. And it was Obama who had planned this raid. And Trump could have called it off, but everything was moving forward. And so this was the first kind of military action under the Trump administration. And one of our men went down and died. And if you, on the surface, you have to ask yourself, well, why are we in Yemen? Well, we're in Yemen because the Saudis are in Yemen. My theory about Yemen is the Saudis want to take it over because I think the Saudis are in trouble. I think they're in trouble with their oil production. I think they're in trouble with their economy. I think they're in trouble with potentially their people. So they can go in, they can take Yemen on. Sure, Yemen has wonderful gas and oil facilities and production, or at least the potential for production. Take it over, and then Saudi Arabia can buttress there. Because Saudi Arabia took a poison pill over the last 8 years, well, about the last 5 years, when they started to overproduce oil. They overproduced oil like nobody's business because they thought that they could deal a blow, an economic blow, to Russia and the U.S. for that matter. Because there was a glut of oil. It was super cheap, and I live in Texas, and they were closing wells right and left, refineries, because there was too much oil on the marketplace. Texas oil was worthless. So the Saudis were part of a kind of a global initiative to flood the market and to destabilize both Russia and the domestic oil producers of the United States. And I believe that Obama was in on it. Because ultimately, I think Obama wants to completely deconstruct whatever version of the United States he's not into. So now the Saudis they've undergone kind of a major economic hit. So now they're in Yemen, and they've been there for roughly the last year. And we're there in Yemen, fighting alongside the Saudis, fighting alongside of the United Arab Emirates. And Trump made a big deal out of this. And he said that before he died, we got lots of really great intel. Who are we getting intel on? So it's like his life was not in vain. Who are we getting intel on? Are we getting intel on the Yemenis? Are we getting intel on ISIS, Daesh, ISIL? Who's the intel on? This has nothing to do with ISIS. This has everything to do with the Saudis and them wanting to take down Yemen. And I didn't like the moment. I'm glad the woman had some relief, respect, context, knowing that her husband's life was in Donald Trump's mind and her mind, not in vain. Of course, Ivanka was sitting right next to her. So, again, all this is very interesting because of positioning. So, with Ivanka, and then off to the other side, Jared Kushner is sitting next to this woman. Her last name was Brody was the guy's name, I think. I forget her last name. But it casts Ivanka in a sympathetic light because she's standing next to this woman who's having this emotional experience. These things do not happen by mistake. I mean, I'm sure they sat down and said, look, let's get Ivanka next to her. Let's get her close to her because if at some point when we bring her up, she has an emotional experience, we're going to have Ivanka in the shot. And Ivanka, gingerly touched her a little bit. So Trump was hitting all of his special interest groups. And look, I just have to say this. If he's a man of his word, then we got to get out of the Middle East. We've got to get out. ISIS it's not a joke. It's real now. But we know who controls ISIS. John McCain has spent a lot of time with ISIS. It's on the public record. He's visited them. Why is there no investigation with John McCain? Well, it's because we know who's behind ISIS. That's right. We created ISIS. The United States, Israel, Turkey, Saudi Arabia, and England, they're all behind ISIS. That's it. Those are your forces that created ISIS. So ultimately, we're fighting against ourselves. How about that? Just like we created Al-Qaeda. It's true. Just like we created the Taliban. It's true. We create these groups. Then we have to fight them. Isn't that great? Trump talked about clean air. It'll be a big part of his administration. Good. Let's clean up those chemtrails, President Trump. Trump is a really good communicator. He's probably the best. I mean, Obama was a really good communicator, too. I don't want to take anything from Obama, but he was too slick, though. Obama was too slick. He was too cool for school, articulate, wry, witty. He was too good. Trump is really good, but he's not too good. He's a little rough around the edges at times, but I'll tell you what you get from Trump is you get real emotion. He connects in emotionally. He's got all those planets in Cancer. So when he's convicted or he feels convicted about something, convinced, he has conviction, then that Cancerian energy comes through and it feels like he really cares. And that is huge, huge, because people get it. It's called transference. And when you see somebody up there, when you see him up there and he is in the flow, in the kind of the deep flow of the speech, and it was really pretty flawless last night, I have to say, that people were feeling it. And there are a lot of people who were feeling it. I was watching an interview with Reince Priebus and Steve Bannon on YouTube, and it was at the CPAC, and it was very, very interesting. These guys, man, they dig each other. They totally dig each other. They dig what they're doing. They're really they've got a plan, and they are hammering this thing out every single day, every single day, every single day. And both of them agreed that Trump is probably the best public orator they've had, or we've had, since William Jennings Bryan, who was, pretty electric back in the day. I wasn't around to see William Jennings Bryan in his prime, but you can watch some of the speeches on YouTube, old speeches. The guy, had a command of oratory and could connect on an emotional level. Trump is the same way. He totally gets it at a Cancerian level. But again, he was doing everything in his power to kind of hit his special interest bullet points. The young woman who raised herself up out of poverty, African-American woman. She's not that young anymore, but she was there. The father who lost his son, he was there due to the fact that he was killed by somebody from another country south of the border. Of course, that's going to be mentioned. And here we go. Look, it's not just some person of white privilege who's walking around and all of a sudden becomes the victim of an assault from somebody who is south of the border. But look, an African American, a Black American. See, it could happen to you. And of course, after Trump lauded them for their ability to carry on, to face their struggles, transform their life, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, applause, and not everybody stood up. This, again, was fascinating. It was fascinating to watch who stood up and who didn't stand up. All right, so let's get into these charts, and I'll tell you why they're interesting to me. It's all about time and timing. You're not getting audio? Shit. What is this about? Oh, man. That's not good. Hold on. Hold on. Audio is fine here. Good. Thanks, JD. Appreciate that. Thank you. Yeah, so this is the last week on Blog Talk Radio, by the way. The last week on Blog Talk. I've already signed up with Spreaker, so there'll be links to Spreaker and everything moving forward. So this is the last week on Blog Talk, just letting you all know. So what I did is I took the speech happened at 9 o'clock p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And what I did is I cast a chart for that, and then I cast a chart for, I already have a chart for Trump. So it's a synastry chart. And so if you look at Trump's speech with Trump, you can see that last night, what do we have here in comments? I just want to make sure. Okay, good. Okay, so if you look at, I've just got to close out my Facebook so I can concentrate. If you look at, I got to go through this quickly now because I'm running out of time. But if you look at this chart, this is a really interesting chart because what we have here is we have a mystic rectangle inside the Trump speech and Trump's chart. And it's Trump's Sun Uranus conjunction with the true node. That is part of would be the northwest corner of the mystic rectangle, which is in sextile with Mars, Uranus, Venus, and the Moon all last night. That's powerful. And then we have a trine from Jupiter going up to those planets, Jupiter on the ascendant, of course, inside the actual chart of the speech. And then we have Trump's Moon with this Saturn conjunction, which has been going on for a while, and sextiling off into the Mars, Venus. So his Moon is in sextile with Mars, Uranus, Venus, and transiting Moon. So this mystic rectangle is very powerful. And then inside we have a grand trine. So there's the Moon again. That's Trump's Moon on Saturn. And then we have, again, this conglomeration of planets, Mars, Uranus, Venus, the Moon, all in what? Trine with his Mars on his ascendant. This is a very powerful moment in time to do this speech. Now, if you look at Trump's planets with his Sun, Uranus, true node conjunction, where are they at the start of the speech? They're in the ninth house. So they're just coming out of the eighth house. Now, as the hour moves on, what happens? All those planets begin to move counterclockwise. So by the time the speech is over, an hour later, his Sun, Mercury, and Uranus are on the midheaven of that speech. The timing here is masterful. Look at where his Saturn is. His Saturn is conjunct the midheaven at the time of the speech. So there's gravitas, there's authority, and then his Cancerian planets, Mercury, Saturn, Venus, all in that kind of emotional, nostalgic, nurturing, caring, and yet very modulated with Saturn, Cancerian energy. It's at the top of the chart. So what we were getting was Donald Trump's best planets in terms of conveying emotion. Whoever picked this day and time, specifically the time, was right on the money. Right on the money. So we have true node here in the 11th house, which is what? Group consciousness. It impacts the highest number of people, the greatest number of people, with true node in the 11th house. Now, by the time the speech is over, the true node drops down into the 12th house. So guess what happens there? We take it inside and we think about it. We have a group experience and then we think about it at a collective level that is much deeper. We have the Jupiter-Jupiter conjunction, Trump's Jupiter right on the ascendant. So when it was go time, his Jupiter was right on the ascendant. Chiron there too. One of the things that Trump actually does really well is he can actually project empathy. And I think that's the Jupiter-Chiron conjunction. Now, empathy here from the Libran perspective is always mental. It's like putting yourself in another person's position from the mental perspective. It is not necessarily from the emotional perspective. And you can see that there is some conflict there because with all those planets in Cancer, which is emotional, the challenge is to bring them down into the first house and through the ascendant so that so people can buy into it, experience it, believability. This is a really interesting chart. We've got a mystic rectangle, we've got a grand trine, we've got a big fat T-square. Saturn's up there. The credibility, now, look, I don't think T-squares are necessarily bad, but you have to work through them. And we can even see the duality. On one side, there's Jupiter. On the other side, we have Aries. And then there's Saturn, the authority, up at the top, mediating the relationship between Libra and Aries in the chart. There's the duality. There's more duality, too, with the Sun in Gemini, right? Sun in Gemini, Saturn in Sagittarius, the Moon in Sagittarius. So that, again, there's more kind of that split energy. This is a fascinating chart. Now, we've only got about 6 minutes left. So what I also wanted to do is bring up the chart with the United States. And I did 2 charts with the United States for specific reasons. And they're both up on the Facebook page and on the show page. Okay, so on one chart, I put the Trump speech on the inner ring, just like I did on the last chart with Trump on the outside. And I put the United States chart, the Sibley chart, on the outside. Look at this chart. You'll see almost the exact same representation with this chart as you do with Trump's chart. So we have the Sun, Mercury, and true node, Sun, Mercury in Cancer. By the way, the United States is going to have its nodal return. That's going to happen in 2018. So we have the Cancerian energy at the top of the chart. And what do we have over here in the 9th house? We've got Uranus, Mars, Venus, Jupiter. So now it's at the top of the the speech chart. Right? It's at the top of the speech chart. So all that energy is being, pushed up from the speech perspective. If you look at The other charts where we have the United States chart on the inner wheel, and on the outer wheel, we have the chart of the speech. Look at what's happening. So the United States ascendant in Sagittarius, 8 degrees. And then we have Pluto second, Moon in the third. Aha, look, here's Mercury, Sun, Neptune, which is where we are right now, third house communication. And look at all of the planets down at the fourth house of the United States. Moon, Venus, Uranus, Mars. So that's hitting home. The fourth house is the emotional center for the United States of America. And all the heavyweight planets are right there, down in the fourth house. So from the two perspectives, we have the speech, and then the importance of the country is put up to the top of the chart. It's ninth house, ideological, because all speeches are ideological. What you do after the speech is not ideological. That's Capricornian. That's putting things in motion. So we have all this ideology up in the ninth house of that moment. It's being highlighted. All these American values. I mean, think about it. Jobs, money, overcoming adversity, living as one, no racism, right down the line. Right down the line. Now, Trump talked about cutting regulations, doing things that people on the left won't like, don't like, but everything else is pure, clear-cut Americana. So again, what I'm trying to illustrate is at the time of the speech, the issues, not even the issues, the elements of the United States itself were lifted up to the top of the chart. You flip the chart around, and the actual speech itself was driving right into the fourth house, which is the emotional center of the country. And if you look at Trump's chart is very similar to the United States chart. We've already discussed that to some extent before, but it's having the same effect on both charts. Fascinating time to do a speech. I'll write more about this on my website. And that's our 15 minutes of flame today. I'm Robert Phoenix. Join me tomorrow for another half hour of infotainment with a little dash of enlightenment thrown in. Have a great day.